90.1 WECS. Something different. On the line we have, I almost called him doctor again, Burton Goldberg. We'll talk to him, the author of Alternative Medicine, the Definitive Guide, and the magazine Alternative Medicine Digest. So stand by right after this public service announcement.
Badger, blue gamma grass, bobcat.
All of these plant and animal species are part of the northern Great Plains prairie dog ecosystem.
Coyote, elk.
The prairie dog ecosystem has been reduced to less than 2% of its historic range.
Great Plains narrow-mouthed frog, ground plum.
Predator Project is working to stop the destruction of this vital habitat.
Mountain plover, mule deer.
Call Predator Project 406-587-3389.
Needle-leaf sedge, pronghorn.
This message brought to you by the Predator Project and WECS Willimantic.
In translation, he's trying to say, listen to something different. 90.1 WECS
Willimantic, Connecticut. All right, on the line, Burton Goldberg. I made a mistake during the beginning of the show. I was calling you Dr. Goldberg. Does everybody confuse you with the doctor?
Always. Because I talk about medicine, I'm just reporting what doctors use to reverse all kinds of health conditions.
Has there been a significant increase in the holistic medicines in the recent years?
Absolutely, leaps and bounds. It's going wild. And the reason, the people in America know that there's something rotten in Denmark, and they're looking to alternative medicine for some of the answers. In other words, mainstream medicine has failed in degenerative disease. They're incredible in the emergency room, but in degenerative disease, they're miserable failures. We still have cancer, arthritis, back pain, headaches, chronic fatigue, and colds and flu, PMS, osteoporosis, and the results are miserable. Alternative medicine has an entirely different tact. It goes to the cause, fixes it, and then your God-given immune system kicks in and heals.
That's the way it should be.
That's the way it should be, but that's not the way it is in medicine. In medicine, they give you drugs. You know, it's kind of like legalized drug dealers.
And like drugs basically just kind of alleviate the symptoms, right? They don't really solve the problem.
If you have a headache, and I got a book out on headaches, the Alternative Medicine Definitive Guide to Headaches, it's like taking the warning light in your car. It says, look, if you don't feed me oil, I'm going to burn your engine. And so you take a scissors and you cut the wire. That's what happens when you take an aspirin for a headache. You can get rid of the pain, but something's rotten in Denmark, and something's going to grind out, something's going to eat up or cause problems. And so our doctors go to the cause, fix it, and then you don't get headaches anymore.
Right. Is there a problem with insurance companies on using holistic
more and
medicine?
more are starting to look at alternative medicine, and it's Mutual of Omaha just did a study on heart disease. And I want to talk about heart disease to your audience because you guys are young enough to make a change in your life so you don't end up with heart disease and cancer like your grown-ups. Now, the Mutual of Omaha did a study on heart disease. The average cost per heart patient for Mutual of Omaha was $14,900 and change a year. Gene Ornish, who has a program with diet and nutrition, cost $4,000 a year. Look at the difference. So it can make a difference in the bankruptcy looming in America. But what's causing, the number one cause of death in this country is heart disease. Number 2 is cancer. Number 3 is stroke. And number 4 is your friendly neighborhood doctor who gives you a drug that has a side effect and it kills you. That's the side effect. And then 250,000 more go to the hospital, but it kills 150,000 deaths a year.
Wow.
That's doctor-induced by the drugs that had side effects. Now, heart disease is an antioxidant deficiency. Now remember this. This is vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin A, beta-carotene, B6, B12, folic acid, quercetin, Q10, pycnogenol, a whole bunch of antioxidants.
Wow, that's a lot.
Now, if you take these, you will not have your arteries turn to stone. That's what hardening of the arteries is about.
Can you do that just by taking a multivitamin every day?
A good multivitamin with nutritional supplements. I'd go heavy on the antioxidants. Now, what causes heart disease? It's God's way of putting a plaster cast around your blood supply. In other words, He's arranged it so you don't leak to death from scurvy because you're deficient in nutrients. Now, if you take these, you don't have hardening of the arteries. We've got to remember, in 1900, there was very little heart disease in America.
Okay.
Today, it's epidemic. And in 1912, the British came over to North America to discover this new disease called heart disease.
Huh. That's probably because back in 1900 they didn't have McDonald's everywhere, huh?
It's a good part of it. The white bread, when we started grinding our wheat and taking out the vitamin E, that was the beginning of the end. Mm-hmm. Know this, that diet plays an enormous role. You got to pay the piper sooner or later. It's difficult to understand this because the media who sells drugs, every time you turn on a TV or a radio, it's another advertisement for a drug company. And they don't want you to know this information. They want you addicted to their drugs.
Right.
That's a sad part of what's going on. Well, look, give you an idea, the politicians. We got Bob Dole, who ran for president of the United States. He told every kid in the United States that cigarette smoking was an addictive. It's like drinking milk. And C. Edward Koop, the Reagan Surgeon General, was a tool of the liberal press. Now, wouldn't you call Bob Dole a tobacco whore?
Oh, absolutely.
You got the President of the United States, who has an FDA. They're trying to put a doctor in jail. His name is Brzezinski. He's an MD. Mm-hmm. He makes drugs for cancer, and it works in a lot of cases. He's not an alternative doctor. He's a regular doctor who they don't want in because they don't have the patent for his drug. They're trying to put him in jail because his patients went down to Houston, bought the drug, and brought it back to Connecticut and New York and California. They crossed state lines. That's the reason they want to put him in jail. Now, it's the president's own FDA. He appointed the commissioner. How dare they want to put this doctor in jail? But they are. They're cops for the pharmaceutical company. So I call President Clinton a pharmaceutical whore. And I lay it on his doorstep. His mother died of cancer,
right,
as did my mother and my sister. And I'm here to tell you that the reason you have an epidemic of cancer is pesticides and herbicides in your food, in your water, and in the air. We have foul air in many parts of this country, but our food supply is full of poisons. And so that's why it's imperative for your listeners to understand they must become vigilant in the green parties, whether it's Green Party or any of this of the Earth and Planet Watchers, because if you don't, you're not going to have the society that your grandparents and parents grew up with. It's going to be different. Why is it going to be different? You see, I'm 70 years old. Mm-hmm. I see what's coming. Right. I have grandkids and children. My oldest daughter is 46. I got 4 grandkids and a 9-year-old son from a divorce. And they're not going to have a good, clean life because we have an epidemic of degenerative disease. Childhood cancer in the 1930s was the 10th cause of death. Today, it's the 2nd cause of death behind accidents. Oh. Now, that takes it away from it being an old-age person's disease. Cancer is escalating at horrendous rates. And so it's imperative for your listeners to know that ecology plays the role. The estrogens that are coming from plastics, they're imitation estrogens, xenoestrogens from the outside. These are hormones. Mm-hmm. They are mimicking regular estrogens and are causing an epidemic of degenerative disease, particularly cancer.
Can we get that from ordinary, everyday plastics?
Indeed. Water bottles and ketchup bottles with the acidic ketchup, and it leaches from the soft plastic and goes into our body microbit by microbit. It's a mess. But and I did a book, Alternative Medicine: A Definitive Guide, and I have a magazine on the newsstand called Alternative Medicine Digest, and I give it away free on internet. Take this down, everybody, if you have an internet site. www.alternativemedicine.com. I give my magazine away totally free. You got a health condition, type in fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, PMS, headaches, and then every article we've done in our magazine, and we've had about 18 issues out now, will be given to you on internet. You can print out and do as you please.
That's great.
We want you to know that alternative medicine is about saving lives. It's about changing the way we think of things, that we must take responsibility for our own health. We must empower ourselves with this information, that if we don't, we're going to become statistics like our brothers.
Can you, I noticed that you have a large staff of doctors who contributed to this book.
380.
Wow. Is that how you got all these different answers and
Oh, yeah. Everything
research?
in the book. I did a book called Alternative Medicine, The Definitive Guide. It's 1,100 pages, and it's about 208 of the worst health conditions and 50 different therapies. And so we went to the experts. We said, Doc, how do you take care of this and that and so forth? And we put it in this book simply so that you can understand it.
Is that how you find out these little things like finding the estrogens in plastic and all that?
Absolutely. Everything comes from scientists. There are endnotes in the back. A lot of people say, well, you're giving people false hope. That's not true. Those are the people who don't have good hope at all because they don't know how to treat cancer. They don't know how to treat degenerative disease. All they know how to do is drug you. How many, 5% of the boys in North America are on Ritalin. That's a neuroleptic drug to mask the symptom of the attention deficit or hyperactivity. Our doctors go to the cause and fix it.
That's the way it should be.
You bet.
But all these pharmaceutical companies would like to make their money, huh?
That's exactly. There's a lot of greed and blood money here, my friend, and that's what it's about. So, alternative medicine is many different types of medicine. It's naturopathic medicine and homeopath and herbal and aromatherapy, Bach flower remedies, acupuncture, Chinese medicine. The list goes on and on. There's 50 different therapies in my book, and how the doctors who practice those therapies successfully reverse these health conditions using natural, non-toxic substances. Isn't that interesting?
It is. You also talk about like biofeedback and having a positive attitude?
Absolutely. Neuralistic programming, biofeedback, all of it is part of the school of alternative medicine.
Have you noticed that there's been a significant increase in gastrointestinal diseases?
There's a significant increase in all diseases, and we have a chapter on gastrointestinal, and we tell you with the use of enzymes and getting absorbable food, taking the proper nutrients, all of that can be reversed.
So I've noticed a lot of people around me, and including myself, that there's a lot of foods I can't eat anymore, or I get an upset stomach every time I have a certain food, or
you're allergic.
Oh.
And very common. Allergies are very, very common. But get my book under enzyme therapy. If you can't afford to buy the book, go to the library. Most libraries have my book. Your university may have a library with my book in it. It's called Alternative Medicine: The Definitive Guide, and look up gastrointestinal disorders. See where you can find yourself in the book.
It seems like there's been a lot of increase in this lately, but you attribute it to what, allergies?
Well, what starts is the inappropriate use of antibiotic. That's one of the reasons. And when you use an antibiotic, you kill the friendly bacteria as well as the bad guys. And you must reforestate. You must revaccinate. You must put in Acidophilus, Lactobacillus, and Bifidus. These are the friendly bacteria that you buy in the health food store, usually refrigerated. And that will reforestate your gut. So when you do antibiotic, you got to do probiotic. And there's chapters in the book on that as well.
That's interesting. It's too bad Kurt Cobain didn't know that. I don't know if you know who he is, but he was the lead singer of a popular band, and one of the reasons why he decided to kill himself is because he was having all these stomach problems and he just couldn't take it anymore.
Well, he was probably mentally ill as well,
Yeah.
and I got into this thing through mental illness, depression, and anxiety, because when you have a disturbance like that and an imbalance, it can affect the neurotransmitters in your brain, the serotonin levels and the various things and hormones that neurohormones, that neurotransmitters that affect your well-being, and some people go into addictions because of that. And when they can be chemically balanced by giving you the right proteins or amino acids. So everything can be reversed if you know how. That's the beautiful part of alternative medicine.
That's good. Would you agree that life is simply the interaction of different chemicals?
Oh, of course. I think that's a given. But the problem today is that mainstream medicine doesn't understand why we have such imbalances, and they don't raise a finger to stop what's going on with these poisons in our world, creating these imbalances.
Right.
So that's why it's important to empower yourself with this information, understand how to keep yourself well for the rest of your life. We're all going to die. It's a question of slowing the aging process, and all that's available today.
Right. There's a lot of talk about legalizing marijuana for medicinal purposes. You don't have to give your view if you don't want, but what could people use it as an alternative? Because they say they want to use marijuana because it reduces the pain and it's no side effects according.
Well, there's no question. There's been two referendums in the state of California and Arizona where they overwhelmingly have been approved for medical use.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, we're living in a dream world when it comes to drugs. Our drug policies have totally failed. We don't go to the reason people take drugs. And all we got to do is put people in jail, and the jails are full, and we're nowhere. Prohibition didn't work, and obviously this drug deal doesn't work. Should we legalize drug? I don't know. I think in Holland they legalized certain drugs, and they're doing pretty good. Does it cause addiction? I don't know. I don't think marijuana causes addiction. I think marijuana is mainly misunderstood. I think if young people do marijuana, they get restless and don't want to study, and they can really affect them mentally. So I do think that it has a bad side effect, but there's no way of stopping it. They haven't been able to stop it now, and I think our fathers that be have to change the way they are putting people in jail for possession. I think it's crazy. Selling is another thing, but there's just a lot of craziness going on, right. Particularly in the medical stuff. I mean, I think it's people are going on the basis of their religion, and in this nation, if you don't want to do something, don't do it, but don't tell other people what to do.
Right. Can you take a few of the questions that we had?
Sure.
Okay. First call we had was an older gentleman had a question about, he works in a shop, and when he leaves the shop and he goes out to his truck, he goes out the door, he takes a big breath of fresh air, and he starts to gag. And occasionally it happens on an empty stomach in the morning, he said.
Boy, that's strange. Maybe there's something noxious in the air, around where he is.
Well, he said in the shop he works around a lot of carbides and all these different chemicals.
That's probably it. It's affecting his lungs. He should go to an environmental medical doctor, and they are available, environmental medicine, orthomolecular medicine. But obviously there's something wrong with where he's working, and it's probably going to take its toll on him down the line.
Right.
I'd strongly recommend going to a holistic physician.
Okay. Second question is on irritable bowel syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Irritable bowel syndrome is very common today, and it has to be cleaned out with the acidophilus. You must have 2 to 3 bowel movements a day. 2 to 3 bowel movements a day. If you don't, you're constipated.
Wow.
And it's quite easy to accomplish that. There's products in the health food store called Nature's Secret AM and PM. It's made by a company out in Boulder. And you take a couple of these pills in the morning, a couple at night, and then you take 3, and then you take 4, and you take 5, until you get the desired bowel movements. And if you get loose bowels, then you slacken off until you don't. It may take several months to do this, but that's a great cleanser. They have about 22 herbs in there, and it works pretty good. Now, on irritable bowel, allergies are a big factor, and so it's important to take nutrients, vitamins and minerals. Aloe vera is very good for that, and there's Carlson Lab makes a product. Carlson Lab makes a product where they took 200 to 1, a concentrated in a capsule, in a gel cap for aloe vera, and that heals the tummy pretty good. Aloe vera is a marvelous thing.
Isn't that good?
And of course, I don't give medical advice. I'm just telling you what our doctors say.
Right.
I would say that if you go to a holistic physician, he'll probably help you.
Okay.
That could be a chiropractor who practices nutritional medicine and understands it. And always say, doctor, who have you treated with my condition? And make sure that you just don't put your hands in yourself in a doctor's hands. You must become part of the healing process.
That's good advice. And how about depression? Are there any alternatives to taking Prozac and all these other drugs?
Absolutely, very much so. In my magazines and in my book, we cover mental health. As I said, I don't think I told you, but I got into this 24 years ago when my friend's daughter at the age of 19 attempted suicide by slicing her wrist. And it was a holistic physician who discovered she was hypoglycemic, a blood sugar imbalance. When he treated her with diet and nutrients, this young girl got well over mental illness.
Wow.
So there are neurotransmitters, there's amino acids like taurine and GABA, and various things to produce serotonin that make you feel good about yourself. And my book, Alternative Medicine, The Definitive Guide, has lots of information about mental health, anxiety, and depression. The use of Bach flower remedies, you can get in the health food store, affect your mood. Aromatherapy can affect your mood, whether you smell it or you put it on the temple, or whether you put a couple drops into it. Metals to make an ounce of the liquid.
Right.
And then chill out. Marvelous. Lavender and ylang ylang and sandalwood. There are so many, but they're kind of expensive because it takes a lot of petals to make an ounce of the liquid.
Right. Now, when I first heard about your book, I wasn't sure if it was true, but were you in the infomercial a while back?
Yeah, I did an infomercial with Mike Levy, and you might see it on television.
Yeah.
I did an infomercial. It's on now. It's still on, being aired on a Western station, Western network, CNN.
It was pretty cool how it was set up as a talk show.
Exactly.
It had me fooled for like the first 5 minutes, and I finally recognized the guy who was doing the interviewing.
Yeah, Mike Levy, and he usually wears glasses and a sweater.
Right.
And he's brilliant. Did you enjoy the infomercial?
Yes, I did.
It's very popular. It's very successful. We sell a lot of books on it. Help a lot of people.
If you ever needed someone else to do the interviewing, just give me a call.
All right. That's a deal.
And one last question: are there a large percent of doctors against alternative medicine?
Well, you see,
we talked about pharmaceutical companies, but how
the
about
pharmaceutical
doctors?
companies? Put out the stuff that it's quackery, it doesn't work, it's this and that. The world's changing. More and more schools are coming into it. More and more people are learning about it. Why? Because the stuff works. people are turning to it because they know something's not working in mainstream medicine. And again, remember, the emergency room is the best. They sew you up and take away your pain. They keep you alive. But in degenerative disease, they're nowhere.
All right, Mr. Goldberg. Would you like to give out that web address again, or
I'm going to give you an 800 number in case anybody wants to get my magazine or wants to get any of my books. I have books on headache, on cancer, and then I have a very important book on cancer. Take down this number, is 888-388-1142. That, again, I'll repeat it, 888 toll-free, 888-388-1142. And the website is World Wide Web, www.alternativemedicine, one word, .com, C-O-M. And you're in for a trip. Fasten your seatbelts.
All righty. I appreciate the interview, and could you hold on the line?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Burton Goldberg, author of Alternative Medicine, The Definitive Guide, and a magazine called Alternative Medicine Digest. So we'll play some music right now, and then we'll be back, and we'll get your comments on the interview. Stand by.
You're listening to Something Different, WECS. This is Burton Goldberg, the voice of alternative medicine.